Hey guys, hope you're well. I'd like to start this video by thanking you guys as we've just hit 1,000 subscribers, so that's very cool and I'm very grateful. And moving on to today's video, I've selected some clips from Jaron Ennis as an amateur in order to do a little breakdown on him before the pros. We're going to see what used to make him so effective and some of the areas of possible mistakes that he made as well, which is of course very similar to the same strengths and weaknesses he currently has as a professional, except nowadays he's a lot more advanced in every system he has, especially things like his Metronome lead hand, which we'll get into in a bit. So I hope you enjoy it, and let's get into it. So we're going to start with this fight. I think it was against Abraham Nova. It's not the greatest quality, but it sets up everything we need to know about Ennis's lead handwork for the later study. So we're going to see Ennis in the blue, Abraham Nova come out in this long guard. Ennis circles over with a slip look. He's using sort of an elusive wand, and then he jabs the back glove of Nova, okay? And we're going to see how Ennis takes control of the lead hand battle as well as sets up his counter off it. Again, a pull look as Nova feints his jab, continues to circle, touch out the back glove, jab to the body. Pretty sure he doesn't land. He throws with enough intent though, and what I call this lead hand is Ennis's metronome lead hand, because it's such a constant issue that his opponents have to deal with. He never really lets off the gas of how consistent he is with his lead hand without needing to land it. He's very happy to bother someone with hard touch jabs to the air and the gloves. So he continues to circle around to his left as he uses his wand and slip look, then puts it in a sort of low lead hand, jabs the back glove, breaks the timing a little bit of this rhythm, uses the slip look to break the distance, jab the back glove, jab to the body. Getting a little bit closer each time. Moving forward now, putting pressure, so he has to get into a high guard look. Jab the back glove. A little bit lighter with the rhythm now, just touches out. Abraham Nova moves to the left and raises his glove before deciding to commit to an attack. He's squared up Ennis a little bit, and Ennis backs off with a shuffle back, but does get hit by those body shots. And he just makes a read off that for later. He shuffles back in, moves around to his left, low lead hand, brings it up to jab the back glove. Again, just progressively getting a little bit closer, being aware of the lead hand battle now as he steps forward and Abraham Nova feints, so he steps back a little bit before deciding, okay, I'm going to jab out the back glove again, and now we're going to see why he did it all this time. He makes the read instantly that Nova will try to counter this jab to the back glove. He knows he's out of range of it, so he pulls back from the overhand right, steps back with the right hand, and then pulls back again before resetting out to his right a little bit and changing his stance. So I hope you saw in that 20 seconds how he was dominating the lead hand battle by just staying consistent and intentful with it, whilst at the same time trying to make reads and bait his opponent into throwing off that touch jab so he could counter him. So this is what we'll be taking a look at really today, his countering off the jab and how it aids him for his defense and timing. So here we're going to see his Golden Gloves match, which is a very famous amateur video, and rightfully so. His opponent in blue a little bit more predictable with his square stance and high guard. So Ennis in this southpaw position, and also forgot to mention the obvious point that Ennis is obviously a switch hitter and he can do this system off both stances. The orthodox versus orthodox maybe invites a nicer pace because someone's lead hand lane isn't blocked off, whereas the southpaw stance makes it easier for him to catch someone over leaning when he creates space because there's more space between their lead hands and therefore their rear hands. So I hope you understand that point. So he's coming out in his southpaw position, and first thing he does, jab the lead glove before making a read of what Blue's reaction is going to be. Just steps back a little bit as he sees the feint, sees that it isn't a punch, is waiting for the punch, sees the left uppercut come out, so he steps back and then just feints his counter because he knows he's out of range. But as you can see, he's already looking for this system straight away and starts with a double step back. Now he shuffles over to the right a little bit, circles to the center. Again, can see his opponent's about to come in, so gets his timing by touching out to the front glove, reading the distance and the momentum, steps back from the jab. From this southpaw position, his orthodox opponent in blue has completely overleaned. Ennis is in a beautiful wide base and checks him as he overleans on his front foot whilst changing the angle. Another exchange, he backs off, making his opponent in blue hesitant with this low guard look before touching out to the front glove, stepping back once he knows there's no counter coming back, but then sets his feet, touches out again, sees the forward momentum, so slips to his rear before throwing this uppercut as he slips the right hand, gets a short frame to line up another left-handed shot, and for defensive responsibility puts up his lead block, his rear block, which he catches the shot off before pivoting off to the right a little bit. Again, he's moving forwards while his opponent isn't super ready, touches out to the front glove, sees his opponent wants to counter it, steps back 2-3 before pulling back with another hook and checking off with it instead. Again, same exchange, his opponent comes forward, he steps in with a very small step with a touch jab to the front glove, breaks his base and resets a slight bit off to the right, changing the angle once he makes the read that there's no counter coming back. And then as soon as he sets his feet, touches out, understands the timing of the forward momentum, and then steps back this time with his hook simultaneously before checking off with it. And here we're going to see him do a beautiful thing, which is break the timing. As you can see, he's near the ropes, he pivots off, continues to circle a bit, starts with a touch jab as he circles, and as he continues, will then break his own rhythm by, as soon as he sets his feet, pushes off his front foot, feints the touch jab to open his opponent up for a left hand, which is a very great option he has off the touch jab. And we'll look more into that later. Again, defensive responsibility, steps back before circling off to the right again, this time going for a jab to the forehead as he circles off, starts to create space in order to invite some pressure in with slow back steps while he leans his weight on his front foot so that he can bait his opponent in. Doesn't make it easy for his opponent by feinting as he moves backwards, and then starts to use a variety of different lead hand touches by a slow touch to the lead glove, a slow hook to the lead glove, which he uses to dress his opponent up for this beautiful uppercut from long range, which from here he made the read that if he feints his lead hand and comes in with his backhand, his opponent will try to lower his base, block it with his rear, and come back with a left hook. Same thing that happens here. Touch off the lead hand, touch off the lead hand, throw the backhand. His opponent tries to lower his base, block it as he did previously, and come back with a left hook, which he just steps back from with his front hand hook, allows that right hand from blue to miss, and then some beautiful framing as he squares his base, controls the shoulders of his opponent, and then moves him out to the left. Not strong enough, unfortunately, with those frames and does get caught by this right. And for the last exchange, we'll see how he changes the angle. He moves off to his right, gives a low lead hand look as he uses different head slots, and then touches out, this time going backwards, since he's not limited to only going forwards, which allows him to have a little bit more distance in order to step back from this right hand, which would have definitely landed if he didn't go backwards with the first jab. He pulls away from it, counters back with a 2 as his opponent squares up, because his opponent hasn't done my ladder drills, and squares up as he's moving forward, catches him with a beautiful left hand, and then ends it with a check off with a front glove, which changes the angle completely of the attack, makes that right hand miss. But once he's seen he's a little bit caught with that left hand here, he decides what's the best decision to make. I can't pull out of this close range position, so I must smother by bending at the waist and coming into this clinch. Great decision making. Now, we were talking about Ennis's defensive responsibility. Does he only know how to check off the jab? No, he can do a lot more. Here he baits his opponent in with his slip position, jabs out to the front glove before again, same exchange. He shuffles back to get away from the right hand. As he sets his feet, his opponent has overleaned from this right hand and has walked forwards into a really bad base position. Ennis times him just as he sets his feet with this left hand to the body before following up with this beautiful right hook. From this right hook gets super bladed, tries to slip off a little bit, but is off balance, so regains his balance by breaking his base instead, using some frames and picking up his right glove to be defensively aware as he moves out, and resets to his right beautifully into that orthodox position, which he switched into so subtly from this base break. Okay, we're going to see it again. He resets to his left with walk steps, comes back into his base as he's seen his opponents close the distance, steps back with a touch jab. This time his opponent hasn't even thrown, and Ennis doesn't care. He's going to counter it anyway. He steps back and slips at the same time before digging up this left hand to the body. And bear in mind, this now can be used as a setup for combinations as well as a counter. He doesn't need his opponent to throw first. And here we're going to see it. He touches out backwards. This is a feint, this low slip position, which makes his opponent hesitant to throw the right hand, as well as square up his base as he moves forward. He eats the left hand to the body. He tries to come back up with the right hook, which lands. But Ennis's love for exchanging, which we're going to talk about later, also gets him caught with this left hand as he's a little bit more square on. And how does he defend himself from this position? He bends at the waist to smother forwards, and here we're going to see some excellent head movement defense. This makes Blue think Ennis is at range, so he's going to dig up with the uppercut. Ennis pulls away and steps back from it. He's got a low lead hand, he's squared up, has taken this follow-up left hand from Blue, so decides to start intentfully blocking with his hands, as well as making himself very hard to hit by getting into these very small positions whilst rolling the shoulders. He rolls back onto his front shoulder, bends at the waist again, which makes Blue think he's close. He pulls back from it, uses the ropes to overlean even more, makes Blue miss wildly for using a forearm frame to his neck, uses the other to frame his back, and then he turns his opponent before resetting. Let's continue and let's see other ways he has of exiting from the jab and countering positions. Here you're going to see him touch out with his front glove as he moves backwards, touch out to the front glove as he moves backwards, very slowly, since he can change the tempo however he wants with his lead hand. As he sees his opponent about to engage, he steps back with the front hand hook, decides to check off with it as well to change the angle, but then decides to sequence this counter by dipping low and coming up with these two body shots, again stepping back with the hook, which makes the right hand fall short, takes his foot to an outside position to square up his base a little bit, and then starts his pivot with the left hand while stepping out with his front foot before pivoting completely to change the angle, getting his opponent to square up again, which he then just decides to check off from. So beautiful angle changes in an exchange, as well as that backwards hook that's been helping him out a lot this fight. So circles off to the center, waits for his opponent with the touch jabs. And does he only have to use a touch jab to set up his counters? No, there's the same principle in other things you can do. So he starts with a touch jab, and once he's got the reading and timing of that, he's going to create some space, bring out his back foot so he can have an easier transition into the next movement. He pops off his left hand from a square position, knows his opponent will retaliate because he's in a square base, and then uses a side step whilst creating space with a slip, makes his opponent completely overlean, and then steps back in with this beautiful four-punch combination, shortening the shots before his opponent reacts a little bit by moving backwards and getting a little bit more sideways on. He manages to catch Ennis with this hook, and Ennis is like, okay, how will I exit? I'll exit with some head movement. And here's an interesting element with Ennis's head movement, as he's got such an interesting base position which he can just switch from. Here, after being square, he pulls away as an orthodox, getting back into that southpaw stance, knows his opponent thinks he's at long range, so changes his head position in order to start rolling. He dips low, switches stance again into an orthodox position as he rolls out to the right, pulls back up again because he wants to change the target from high to low with his head movement. And as he's seen his opponent's hesitant and a little bit square, decides, perfect, I'm going to engage first, switches back into his southpaw position so he can load up on this lovely three-punch attacks, winds up the left uppercut, front hand hook, and then follows up with a two. How does he end it? Resets to his left for more distance. So we just talked about one of the ways he doesn't need to use a touch jab. He's going to do a similar thing here as he walks over to the left, lets him invite the right hand a little bit. He then is only going to use a feint of the touch jab here, which is going to completely throw off the defensive reaction of Blue for waiting a little bit in this position, then creating the space once he sees the right hand, slips off, 1, 2, 3, 4, steps back with the hook as he usually does, sees he's in a close range position, decides to change the range by dropping his level before pulling out with a step back, and sequences another two-punch combination once he's seen his opponent's base is completely wrong. He's even in the southpaw position right now. So we spoke about it a little bit before, but what other options does Ennis have off his lead hand? Will he just counter with it, or will he start an attack with it? And of course, we've seen it previously, how he uses his lead hand to set up attacks, and here we're going to see that a little bit more. So he's going to start in this orthodox position by jabbing out to the front glove of his opponent in blue, whilst he creates some space. Metronome lead hand Ennis is now going to feint his lead hand before, now knowing he's conditioned him to react with a touch jab, shows it by bringing it up before feinting it, coming around as his opponent tries to reach with the parry. And this wasn't even to land the left hook, it was only to set up this right hand here, which he doesn't mind landing to the gloves since he just wants to let it off to begin with. He resets to the right and is going to do a very similar thing as he touches out to the back glove before making the read that he's going to jab. He doesn't pull away enough, unfortunately, but manages to check off away from the right hand and the exchange. Resets a little bit to his left, circles back towards the center. Another touch jab to the gloves as he moves backwards, this time with more intent. Uses a left slip look in between, touches out again, this time to the back gloves, stepping back from that follow-up jab since he saw that he wasn't going to come in with an attack. Uses a left slip look to bait in a jab or threaten his own. Another slower touch, moves out to the right to change the angle and force Blue to shuffle in to close the distance for him, which he's now going to break the momentum of. Produces a hard step-in feint with the lead hand to close the distance, flicks it out before again only using that touch jab to set up his overhand right. How does he finish the exchange? Follows up with a backwards hook, which allows him to create some space before pulling away from the follow-up overhand right. And again, changes the angle by switching his stance, switching it back to orthodox and resetting to the right. Here's a fight that he had with Richardson Hitchens. We're going to see him start an exchange off his touch jab again. He starts with the front glove as a southpaw, then steps a little bit over to the inside angle before raising his guard into a high guard look. He steps into another touch jab before deciding I'm going to take the outside angle with a 3-punch attack to my right. Follows up with a hook to the front hand, which allows him to progressively close the distance in order to land this third punch. He's got an insane reach, so manages to pull away from the counter and then step back afterwards. And a very quick, explosive first step like that badge in 2K. And this is a perfect example of the ladder drill, even the subsequent defense afterwards. We're going to see him do it again. This time he's in a corner. He's going to move around to his right with a slip look as he shows his lead hand. This gets Hitchens a little bit more defensive. He's ready to step back. Ennis knows this, doesn't want to land his first two, just wants to break the distance with it, so he flicks out his jab as he steps over to the right, pounces out from his back foot into this second jab, takes the angle to the right, and then finishes off with his beautiful offline left hand before deciding, okay, I'm going to feint it back in and take back the center away from that starting position he was in near the corner. And for the final part of this video, we're going to talk about Ennis's need to exchange. So sometimes he does an excellent job with his exchanges, sometimes not so much. The main thing for me, however, is that it's very clear he loves exchanging way too much. And although he usually gets the better of them by quite a large margin, I'm worried it will actually follow him in his professional career. So here we're going to see a bit of the good, the bad, the ugly. You're going to see him come forward in this tall base position before feinting, knowing it will draw out a counter, which he's happy to step back with the hook for. One thing you might have noticed about Ennis is he's very comfortable in these positions where he's definitely open for an unlucky shot. Catches his opponent with his front hand hook as he takes the right hand, tries to switch stance defensively with a slip and pivot out, and then wants to retaliate from that shot, which is always the sign that someone loves an exchange. He comes back in by using a slip look as he leans over and using a touch jab out before following up with his left hand. Again, steps back with a hook, which has been saving him a lot in these exchanges, but wants to sequence more counters off of it. So he steps back in with a front hand hook and a left hand. And although he wasn't defensively responsible for a lot of this, is going to actually make an effort to pick up his front block before slipping out. Another exchange where he sequences his counters together is this step into this beautiful jab. He now makes the read that his opponent wants to counter off of it. He steps back and throws this beautiful hook going backwards, gets sideways on for defensive responsibility, which his opponent is excited to close the distance in on, but then decides he doesn't want to reset and actually wants to sequence another counter together while his opponent's readjusting his base. Comes in with a hook to land this left hand. Again, a double right hook going backwards whilst his opponent's square, and then he resets out to his left. So that was an example of a beautiful exchange for Ennis. Again, I think we've seen a little bit of this where he pulls away from the right hand and then resets to the right, but we haven't seen the follow-up of this. He breaks the rhythm from the slow reset into a fast combination with 2 touch shots with the 1-2, but this is only so he can bait and look for a counter from his opponent, which he does. He steps back, uses another backwards hook, switches stance as he throws his backhand, and then decides to sequence it together with another 1-2, creating a huge opening as he closes the distance too far in. Gets caught with his crazy right hand, but then continues to throw as he's getting caught. He throws a backwards hook and then continues to follow up with his own left hand and still doesn't want to stop the exchange, wants to sequence that off, shuffles back in with a retaliation feint 1-2, knows he can catch his opponent with a sort of delayed hook since he's done it before, and swings this right hook around even whilst getting caught with his own a little bit, lands it nicely as he creates some space, steps back again, and I'm sorry, but he's just so happy to be here. Look how much he widens out for this uppercut here before catching his opponent with a body shot and then following up with 3 punches before finishing off after this offline shot with a lovely hook. Except no, he doesn't finish off, I was wrong. Continues to follow up with this 2-3, even as he gets caught with this left hook. And the only punch that makes him stop in this exchange is this right hand to the chest that pushes him off balance. I mean, these exchanges are completely ridiculous. Here we're going to see one of the details of how he gets some of the better of these exchanges. You see him widen his base as he sees his opponent come in, throw a left uppercut to the body, follows up with a check right hook. His opponent doesn't let him leave this time and actually decides to stay on his chest. So what can Ennis do here? He's squared up, he's on the ropes, and he's going to start using a small bit of frame so he can create some space here, which is very hard for a taller man to do. He's going to lower his head position as he creates space with his hips, which creates a little bit of an opening. He tries to dig in this short right hook, keeps it there as a frame so he can push him onto that side for this body shot, which lands a little bit low, is being smothered quite a bit and postured up here. So he changes his head position, having all his weight on his back foot, changes his head position on the inside so he can get to the other shoulder, then uses a forearm frame at the same time, gets caught with this left hook here, but lands his own lead hook over the top. But because of the space that's been created with the forearm frame, manages to land his own lead hook over the top, dips low into another body shot whilst he gets caught with this right hand. It's a beautiful body shot, and then a very short frame with the front hand to the elbow so he can measure him up for this follow-up left hand, setting him up beautifully so he can turn right in with that lead hook to the body. Beautiful punch mechanics. He gets caught again, but continues to throw his hook as he readjusts his weight onto his back foot, which sets him up wonderfully to turn right in with this follow-up left hand as his opponent's pulling out of that mid-range. And then the ref steps in for a count. And this is the last exchange that we're going to take a look at. We're going to see Ennis get relaxed and start to play with his opponent, only to his detriment, unfortunately. And this is an example of Ennis not taking an exchange seriously, but enjoying it anyway. He's just touching out with his left hand, completely square, decides he's found the range to the forehead, so flicks it out even more, pulses it back before flicking it out again. His opponent slips it because it's very obvious to see what's happening here. Ennis is completely square as he looks over at him in this slip position. Very nice short counter from Blue as he slips over and boom, lands this crazy right hand as Ennis decides, you know what would be a good shot in this position? An uppercut. Which, funny enough, he's not completely wrong because he does manage to land. And I hope you see how this love for exchanging for Ennis, although this is an extreme example, can put you into really bad positions. The more you control when you decide to initiate an exchange and not bite on every feint or attack from your opponent with counter punches, as well as not need to sequence everything all the time, you create a lot less risk for yourself. And that's just a lesson in controlling the pace of a fight for any amateur boxer out there who feels like he might take a lot of punches. Chances are you're not limiting how many exchanges you're actually in with patience. Anyway, Ennis decides, no, I don't like that I got hit there, I want to retaliate, which is very obvious when someone wants to do it, and decides to set his feet, widen his base, and step in with an attack where he lowers his head position and drives in very short, fast shots on the inside, landing 3 good shots to the body. Because of this low head position that he's in, his opponent's hooks are falling a little bit wide. Then he puts all his weight onto his back foot, so he has enough distance to land this beautiful left hand. Catches and counters from his left glove here with another overhand left. His opponent's now squared up. They're both exchanging. Ennis continues to follow up before getting his head low, changing his head position as he's done before. Once he's baited his opponent into throwing to this low head position, pulls away before again changing the range, slipping off and getting into this clinch, which is one way that you can avoid having long exchanges in amateur boxing. And this is why I called this segment The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, because he does exchange extremely well. I'm just not a huge fan of how many times in a round he feels comfortable with doing it. Now, against limited opponents, you're giving them more of a chance of success, as well as yourself. But against high level opponents, if you've got such an ingrained habit of constant exchanges and sequences, consequences, then you just end up opening yourself up for more opportunities for your opponent to exploit you. And that's the main takeaway of this segment. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Not sure what I'll do for my next video, but you'll see next week on Wednesday. I'll keep this time, 8:30 p.m. London time. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learnt a lot. Thanks again for 1,000 subscribers. I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'll see you guys soon. Happy training, guys.